This program contains material that may be disturbing to some viewers. Parental discretion is advised. Somewhere hidden, lit only by candlelight, people gathering to worship Satan. It has been whispered that among their dark activities, some are practicing the blackest deed of all. The stuff nightmares are made of. Murder in the name of Satan. In recent years, there have been a number of bizarre murders with unusual circumstances. Some claim these deaths may be the aftermath of satanic rituals.
There's a loose-knit network of cults, satanic cults, operating across this country.
Some think it's the work of deranged individuals acting out their madness.
It was the act of someone with a sick mind, with a mental illness, so to speak.
Baffled, police from around the country have turned to specialists for help.
Another word for cult, which we're going to see.
Dr. Don Perlmutter is a ritualistic crimes expert who trains law enforcement officers to identify and solve these difficult cases. On a cold winter's morning, she was called to a crime scene in Philadelphia. A strangely mutilated body has been found in this rundown neighborhood.
So this is the building?
Yeah, this is it here.
Lieutenant Joseph Mom has asked Dr. Perlmutter to help him deduce if the murder is a ritualistic crime. Every step takes them further from the street and deeper into the inner sanctum of the dilapidated building. Lieutenant Mom guides her through the treacherous rubble towards the site where the body was discovered.
He was actually found right back behind, right back there.
Finally, in the darkest part of the structure, they reach their destination.
He's found in that corner right there. You saw the crime scene photos. He's lying on his stomach when he's found.
The victim was a 62-year-old male. He was found with his throat slit and his heart and liver cut out of his body. According to police, the organs were too crudely extracted to sell on the black market, a fact which draws attention to another mysterious element of the crime scene.
Looking at this, you're going to find that operation where they removed his heart didn't take place here, for the simple reason that there wasn't enough blood.
Detectives surmised that the man was killed elsewhere and his mutilated body was dragged here by rope and left in a pile of tires. Back out in the fresh air, Dr. Perlmutter reveals her terrifying suspicion. The man could possibly be the victim of a satanic human sacrifice.
The heart has been cut out, the body organs have been cut out, and the blood is gone from a body. It's indicative of a ritualistic killing. They don't just take a heart for the sake of, oh, this is cool, I just pulled this out of a human body. It usually has some kind of meaning to them.
For Dr. Perlmutter, all signs point to a homicidal satanic cult in Philadelphia, and all they can do now is wait for more gruesome evidence to turn up.
If it's a ritual homicide, they're not going to stop with one.
I don't even want to think about that.
Ritual human sacrifice has been happening for thousands of years. Ancient cultures like the Aztecs and Mayans believed that offering up their fellow man and women was a way to strengthen and appease the gods. But how much real evidence is there that human sacrifice is actually occurring today? Is this true crime or overactive imagination? Ted Gunderson was one of the top field agents in the FBI and former chief of the Los Angeles office. He says human sacrifice is real, and he believes satanic cults are responsible. He travels the country lecturing about the dangers of Satanism.
People have heard about the satanic movement and they're curious. They don't know about ritual ceremonies. They don't know about human sacrifices.
Gunderson claims he has undeniable proof to support his theory. In this safe, he keeps a piece of evidence which was entrusted to him years ago.
People say there's no evidence of satanic human sacrifice. This is evidence that was given to me by an informant.
His proof, a videotape. containing footage of what he says is a satanic human sacrifice. Are the scenes depicted on the tape actual or a staged hoax?
We have before us a gift that's going to last, outlive, outlove any and every human being on earth. People, we are free. We are there.
In order to assess the authenticity of the tape, Dr. Don Perlmutter, the ritualistic crimes expert, viewed the footage, looking for known satanic crime patterns.
That tape was very consistent with satanic ritual homicide. The fact that he was attacked and stabbed and eviscerated is unfortunately standard techniques in a ritual homicide.
Although the tape may appear authentic, there are some who question its validity. Emergency room physician Dr. Gregory Carroll knows how real human blood and tissue react to real trauma.
From what I can gather, what I can see from watching this video, this appears to be staged, appears to be theatrical type blood. I think the kind of the way that the blood is being presented doesn't really hold up to what my experiences in life and trauma that I've seen.
In satanic communities, there are many opinions about the reality of the practice of human sacrifice. This is a real satanic gathering in Long Beach, California. The Syndicate of 5 Points is in the midst of the satanic ritual.
Hail Satan!
Hail Satan!
These self-styled Satanists are initiating a young man named Hiroki into their cult.
We are here to open the path to our carnal nature. Do you, beast of the field, a being of flesh, proclaim yourself a Satanist?
Yes.
Do you reject all false knowledge and self-deceit?
Yes.
Do you live life for yourself and those you love?
Yes.
In whom do you place your trust?
Syndicate of the 5 Points.
I like the fact that it allows one to indulge in the pleasures of life as opposed to live completely for the good of other people.
But in this cult, they claim there are no sacrifices of any kind.
In the past, I've been with groups that involved sacrifices of some type, not specifically human sacrifice, but sacrifice of small animals, and I didn't feel that that was right in any way. It went against my principles.
But according to Hiroki, sacrifice is apparently not a limitation for all satanic cults.
I do believe there are groups that participate in human sacrifice.
Shemham Farash.
Coming up, an unusual murder unnerves a small town.
I don't believe that anybody had ever walked into a crime scene before in Stanislaus County where there were 4 dead people.
And a woman claims a satanic cult made her commit bizarre acts.
What they do is perform a ritual that's very intense, very shocking.
911 emergency?
Yes, ma'am. We were awakened by a loud noise and some corruption going on outside on Mason Street in Salida.
You are listening to an actual 911 recording of a woman who may have just heard the sounds of satanic sacrifice.
Can you tell me what you heard?
Yeah, it sounded like he was being strangled or thrown up or I don't know.
In the spring of 1990, according to police, 6 shadowy figures emerged from a car near Elm Street in Salida, California. Under cover of darkness, they crept toward a quiet house. Court documents state that 2 entered from the front, while the rest sneaked in around the back. A door opened to let 2 visitors in. Then the electricity was cut. And a back window was lifted to let the intruders climb through. Moments later, anguished screams roused the neighbors from their sleep. A man runs out into the moonlight with knife wounds he just received.
911. Listen, I just woke up and there's a man screaming outside. We're killing him.
A hysterical woman escapes from the besieged house and pounds on a neighbor's door for help.
There's a lady that just came to our front door, and she looks like she got beat up or something. She's so scared, she can hardly talk.
Okay, tell her to take it easy because we got deputies on the way, okay?
As calls pour into the Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department, officers and ambulances rush to the scene. The first officer to arrive stumbles onto a scene of unimaginable carnage. Detective Gary Deckard says it's a night that will haunt him forever.
When I entered the residence, it was pretty gruesome, pretty horrific. There was 4 victims, all obviously dead.
One of the victims, a 25-year-old man laying on the street after he attempted to flee the house.
One of the victims was actually on the roadway, about right here. Multiple stab wounds to his body.
Victim number 2, the 51-year-old who lived in the house. Victim number 3, a 35-year-old man butchered in the kitchen. And victim number 4, a 23-year-old woman slaughtered in front of the refrigerator.
It was an eerie feeling, very eerie, to see, death, so much of it, all in one little area.
The crime was dubbed Nightmare on Elm Street, and many people thought it had the earmarks of a satanic human sacrifice.
Looked like they had all suffered blows to the head from some type of blunt instrument, and they all had their throats either slashed or stabbed. It was very, very gruesome.
The lone survivor was a woman who managed to hide under a pile of clothes. She reported that one of the killers had a gun, but not one shot was fired in the massacre. Detective Deckard believes these killers wanted to get their hands bloody. Still, nothing could have prepared the detective for the magnitude of evil he was about to confront.
We were just at the beginning stages of the investigation, and what we uncovered next days and weeks later was pretty shocking.
William Miller is a prominent defense attorney who was involved with the case.
I don't believe that anybody had ever walked into a crime scene before in Stanislaus County where there were 4 dead people.
At the crime scene, Detective Gary Deckard interviewed the lone survivor.
She described one of the suspects as being a white Caucasian with an afro-type hairdo.
Her account turned out to be Deckard's first big break.
I saw a couple local people walking outside the crime scene, and I asked them if they knew anybody in Salida matching that description.
They said, that sounds like Jason LaMarche. He lives over at the camp.
Jason LaMarche was linked to an old migrant workers camp just a mile away from the crime scene. The camp was home to Gerald Cruz, Ricky Vieira, and Dave Beck.
This is what the locals refer to as the camp. This is where they resided at, in that little house right there at the end.
Deckard's men nabbed Ricky Vieira first, and according to police, after several interviews, he confessed.
He finally admitted to his participation in the murders.
Vieira also confirmed that the other 3 suspects took part in the murders, along with Ron Willie and Melissa Missy Evans. Detective Deckard and his officers swiftly arrested all 6 suspects. During his conversations with Vieira, Deckard verified his suspicions that this was no ordinary gang of thugs.
It's one of these interviews that you'll always remember the rest of your life. He told me that he in fact did kill her. And when he described that to me, he actually did it in a chuckle. Ricky had these eyes like a Charlie Manson look, like he was so removed from reality.
The comparison to Charles Manson couldn't be confined to just Vieira's shifty look. A little over 20 years earlier, Manson led his cult of followers to commit a brutal ritual murder of their own. Vieira's testimony seemed to support the feelings of many in the community that his gang was actually a homicidal cult. The leader of this cult was 28-year-old Gerald Cruz.
He had a natural flair for human psychology. He understood what made people tick. That was rather obvious because he took people and could mold them to his will.
He would find people that was low self-esteem, possibly homeless. He'd bring them into his little group, and once they were there, he controlled them. He was a control freak.
According to William Miller, several years earlier, Cruz had formed a self-styled cult, which he named the Order of the Lion.
Everybody that was a member of the Order of the Lion then signed the book and put a thumbprint beside their name in blood. If I recall, there were at least a dozen names in the book.
While searching Cruz's cabin, investigators will soon make a shocking discovery. When we return, Gerald Cruz and his followers are exposed. And we go inside the Church of Satan to see an actual cult ritual. The residents of a tiny Northern California town were shocked when 4 people were killed in one night. Cult members' diaries were found by the police at the home of Gerald Cruz, the prime suspect in the case. According to police and court documents, the diaries detailed rituals and evil plans. Like most self-styled Satanists, Cruz combined the traditional satanic rituals he learned in books with his own creations. The most chilling entry in any of the diaries concerned Gerald Cruz's opinion of human sacrifice.
Gerald Cruz wrote in his diary that one of the most cleansing rituals that could be performed was the sacrifice of a newborn baby.
Some believe that those who sacrifice humans do it to gain favor with Satan, who supposedly will give them long life in return. For Cruz and his Order of the Lion, was the murder of the 4 people on Elm Street a brutal crime spree, or was there evidence it went further and was also a ritual sacrifice? Sheriff Richard Brashears, who investigated the murders, noted that certain aspects of the case didn't fit the typical satanic profile. Most notably, the satanic material was found at Gerald Cruz's home, not at the crime scene.
There's no writings left or no diagrams or anything like that that was left in the home that would be a signature of a satanic or ritualistic killing.
Attorney William Miller believes Gerald Cruz didn't behave like the typical high priest of a satanic cult.
I think that where you have people who practice satanic rites or devil worship, they have a focus point, Satan. I don't believe Gerald ever had a focus point more than Gerald.
Cruz was rumored to have a personal vendetta against the murdered homeowner.
Some conflict over Missy and the affections and who she was seeing and who she had been seeing.
But if the homeowner was the only one the cult was out to kill, why were there 3 other victims?
There was no real explanation why they were killed so brutally, other than Gerald Cruz did not want any survivors.
In the end, Gerald Cruz, Ricky Vieira, and Dave Beck were sentenced to death, while Jason LaMarche and Ron Willey received 62 years for their role in the crime. Michelle Missy Evans made a deal to testify and was placed on probation for 3 years. Whether the Elm Street murders were a human sacrifice or not, William Miller feels Gerald Cruz's cult never strayed too far from its satanic roots.
If you're into something like that, do you ever leave it? Don't forget, they had all done these things. They still all had the ritual books.
According to police, the books did appear to be satanic in nature.
It's just one of those cases that I just never forget as long as I live.
I would have to say Gerald Cruz, probably the most evil person that I've ever met, laid eyes on. If Gerald knows that, that probably thrills him to death to hear it.
Gerald Cruz isn't talking, so perhaps we'll never know if the bloody massacre was a gift to Satan or the acts of a madman with a following. Some experts think Gerald Cruz loosely based his cult on his interpretation of satanic teachings. But members of the Church of Satan claim that people like Cruz are giving real Satanists a bad rap.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
In a ritual ceremony, they gather and place a young woman on an altar to worship Satan and represent man's carnal desires.
In the name of Satan, the ruler of the earth and the king of the world, I command the forces of darkness to bestow their infernal powers upon me.
Our God is not a guy hanging on a cross, dying. Our God is someone who is beaten down, who has been cast down by the most powerful being in the universe, presumably, and still can stand up and continue to fight. That's a very human hero, and that's our hero.
Blanche Barton is a magistra in the Church of Satan. She was given the title by a council of 9 who lead the church for her accomplishments in spreading the word of Satan. Blanche was the longtime companion of Anton LaVey, late founder of the Church of Satan, the first modern organized satanic church. Known as the Black Pope, LaVey was the author of the seminal Satanist creed, the Satanic Bible. Now, Barton has dedicated her life to carrying on LaVey's libertine lifestyle.
I think the role of the Satanist in society in general will always be
Satan,
exploring the boundaries of propriety and kind of playing with people, kind of ticking people off.
Belial, I am thee, thou art thee. We are all one. Let our will be done.
The Church of Satan says they are often wrongly associated with ritual sacrifice.
I've been a Satanist for 30 years, and so I can speak with a certain amount of authority. We do not sacrifice virgins. We do not sacrifice unborn babies. We do not harm animals in any of our rituals.
Hail the Satanist! Hail Lucifer! Hail Satan!
This program contains material that may be disturbing to some viewers. Parental discretion is advised. Ted Gunderson, the former FBI agent who has spent his life researching ritual human sacrifice, insists that murder is the very foundation of Satanism. As evidence, he points to famed English occultist Aleister Crowley's book, Magic and Theory in Practice.
And here's what he says in his book. For the highest spiritual working, one must accordingly choose the victim which contains the greatest and purest force. A male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable victim. This is in their literature.
Gunderson says that children are the primary victims of satanic cults.
I receive hundreds of letters, hundreds of phone calls. I have talked to hundreds of what we call satanic ritual abuse survivors.
Ted Gunderson has traveled across the country to interview a survivor named Sharon, who has a staggering story.
I want to talk to Sharon now because she remembers a lot more details about the cult.
Sharon is an artist who claims she recently escaped from a traditional satanic cult. Ted has learned that Sharon was inducted into the cult at a very young age.
How are you doing?
Good.
Let's start with how they control people.
How they control people is they bring the children in very small and they put them on an altar and they give them a different name, like a new name, and then they would tell them, you're asleep, this isn't really happening to you, while they're performing the evil satanic ritual on their body or their mind.
Sharon vividly recalls her own induction ceremony.
One of the leaders chopped off the head of this black goat, and then he picked it up by the top of the head, and he was like sprinkling the goat so the blood would drip all over my body, and they were saying, Lucifer is Lord.
Lord. Lucifer is Lord.
Sharon tells Ted Gunderson that she had repressed all knowledge of these memories until one traumatic day 6 years ago.
I prayed one day and I just said, God, what is wrong with me? I want to know. I'm ready to see it. Show me.
Images from her disturbing thoughts began to appear in her artwork.
I would do a piece of art and then later it would pop out and I'd go, oh my gosh, that was the ritual.
Gunderson convinces Sharon to join him on the long drive back home to face the trauma of her youth. She brings Ted here to a remote forest area where she claims the satanic cult performed many ceremonies at night.
In the rituals at night, I saw the most frightening thing, these three men standing in these black suits and waiting for me. And they were programming me and saying, you aren't going to remember any of this. You're at the beach, you're in the water, everything's peaceful.
Next, Sharon leads Ted deeper in the forest to a place where she says she was taken by cult members many times.
It's like right up there. They took me up here at night and we went up there right at the base of the waterfall there, and they were praising Lucifer and speaking in weird languages and just had me under very deep programming, mind control, so I didn't remember any of it happening.
During a hike here years ago, the waterfall triggered the release of her repressed memories.
And I said, oh my gosh, something happened up here, and I started...
Your memory.
Yeah, I started going through the memory and everything, and the pain.
Even more chilling, Sharon claims the cult used this very spot for the most heinous of all deeds, human sacrifice.
I had 4 babies to my knowing, and 4 of the babies were killed in the rituals. And I had to kill all of them.
But are Sharon's memories real, or is she the victim of outside suggestion? Either way, the memories are too much for her.
How do you feel now that we visited? Did it bring back any emotional problems for you?
Yeah, whenever I talk about it, it kind of brings up the sadness in me, realizing what happened, and mainly for the babies that were killed. It's horrible what they do there. It's just terrible.
But for Gunderson, this interview is a major revelation.
The information that Sharon gave today confirms information previously furnished by other survivors.
However, many experts consider Gunderson's methods suspect. Recovered memories such as Sharon's are often highly unreliable, and the Church of Satan refutes allegations that they participate in any such abuse.
All these people getting on talk shows, on Oprah Winfrey and Geraldo Rivera's show, with these wild tales of recovered memories and generational Satanism, and of course there's no such thing.
Yet ritualistic crimes expert Dr. Dawn Perlmutter finds Sharon's story quite credible.
I have worked on cases that are very similar. Her descriptions are very detailed, and I believe that that happened to Sharon.
Just outside Philadelphia, officers of the Lower Makefield Police Department investigate the grisly site of what seems to be another ritual human sacrifice.
We come down, we're looking for other evidence, other things that may lead people to crime, footprints, pieces of trash people may have dropped, identification, pieces of clothing, other things that may help us figure out what happened and what was going on.
As they examine the ominous evidence left behind, all signs point to a murderous satanic cult. When we return, the culprits who left behind this satanic scene are divulged. And officers in Ohio interview a teenage suspect with ties to Satanism.
Went in my mom's room and murdered her.
This program contains material that may be disturbing to some viewers. Parental discretion is advised. Just outside Philadelphia, officers investigate the scene of what appears to be a ritual human sacrifice.
Who found it?
Had a fisherman was down there fishing by the water and happened to come across it as he was working his way down the river.
The officers did an excellent job. They recognized all of the occult evidence.
You got a box down, you got a Bible, some type of Bible up there. Looks like maybe satanic. We have 3 books on top of each other. The top one has no name on it.
They even recognized the significance of the evidence.
There's a box with 3 skulls on the side of it. Inside the box, Bob, is a couple crucifixes. Looks like 3 crucifixes.
They recognized the significance of the magical diary, that, you know, they needed to get that translated right away. They recognized clearly that it was Satanist.
But this is not a real satanic crime scene. 3 hours earlier, Dr. Don Perlmutter and Corporal David Schaefer of the Pennsylvania State Police had set up this mock crime scene.
It's important for police to know how to investigate these types of crime scenes because it's starting to occur much more frequently.
Dr. Perlmutter wants the officers to be aware of what a satanic crime scene looks like and what kind of occult evidence might be found at such a scene. The scenario: a group of Satanists had just finished sacrificing a young girl when they were suddenly interrupted. Forced to flee in a hurry, they left behind most of their ritual items. Before the officers arrive, she begins setup of the fake scene, starting with the altar.
This is the chalice. It has the pentagram on it. During the homicide, they may use it to put blood in there and to literally drink the blood. Because Satanism is a reversal of Christianity, what they do is they take crosses and they turn them upside down.
Perlmutter places rosary beads, a crucifix, and the Satanic Bible into a tree. Then she adds the most critical piece of evidence.
There's a thing called a grimoire, or a book of shadows. Basically, essentially, it's a magical diary. This is the best kind of evidence you could ever find, because if they murdered people, they wrote it down here.
And finally, human teeth.
Because of the nature of the ritual and the nature of what they believe in, the longer they harm someone and the longer they prolong it, it gives them more power. One of the ways you torture someone is to knock their teeth out, pull their teeth out. So I actually have, you know, real teeth that I'm going to put at the scene.
After scattering simulated body parts, the preparation is complete.
Dr. Perlmutter's trainer helped us identifying the type of crime scene it was.
So far, a satanic human sacrifice hasn't happened in this area. But thanks to Dr. Perlmutter's training, these officers will be prepared if it ever does. Perlmutter's theory that homicide detectives need to know how to recognize a satanic crime scene was proven all too true in Bel Air, Ohio in 1995. Sheriff Tom McCord and his deputies are summoned to a local residence when a teenage son comes home to discover his parents had been brutally murdered. This real footage shows what one of McCord's deputies videotaped.
Okay, this is the living room coming in through the front door.
When I got to the scene, I didn't want to be there, and I know Sergeant Samples and the squad members, we all had the same thing. Why us?
When they made their entry into the residence, what they found staggered them.
Okay, be the first bedroom to the right in the hall.
We found her lying on her bed. We also found in that room an axe with blood and some other elements on it. We found various items which would be used in satanic worship.
When the officers enter another bedroom, they find the father lying face down on his bed. It appeared Sheriff McCord had a satanic killer on his hands, and all signs pointed to the murdered couple's son, Nathan Brooks. Within hours, police tracked the teenager down in a local cemetery.
It was in this area where Nathan was found sitting in a parked car.
Sheriff Tom McCord headed up the questioning about the savage double homicide and recorded it to audio tape. This reenactment of the interrogation is based on police records.
Do you want to tell us what happened last night and early morning, hours this morning?
I was watching some movies and stuff. Then I went into my mom's room and I murdered her, and then my dad. And then I performed the black mass, and then I took a walk.
Sheriff McCord told Brooks that when he and his deputies arrived at the scene, they found the bloody corpse of Nathan's mother.
I didn't want her to make any noises, and I didn't want her to feel anything, so I smashed her head with an axe first. And then after that, like I stabbed her about 10 times.
Nathan posed her dead body in the shape of a satanic cross. He also shot his father 3 times. Then, most disturbingly of all,
I took his head off with a saw.
the decapitated head was found on an altar in Nathan's bedroom, which was full of satanic books and artwork.
Was there a reason why you decapitated your dad?
Yeah. I need his head for ritual.
Nathan indicated that he thought the ritual would strengthen his pact with the devil and increase his satanic powers. Coming up, police investigating the murder make a shocking discovery.
I was deciding if I should kill more people.
17-year-old Nathan Brooks confessed to murdering his parents and claimed he had a pact with the devil. Sheriff Tom McCourt found evidence of occult dabbling in Nathan's Book of Shadows, a journal in which Nathan documented his satanic rituals. Many performed for his friends in high school.
Did you make sacrifices back then?
Yeah.
What did you use then?
Candles and stuff. My own blood.
Your own blood?
I just do things for him.
In a shocking discovery, McCourt's officers found a list of names in Nathan's room. The list showed that Nathan's dark plot didn't end with his parents. The list showed names of people he was planning to kill next.
I had a list of so many people, all the people that trusted me. It would have been easy.
The list included his family and friends, all of whom he planned to lure into the house one by one.
I had a plan to skin him, to hang him up in the basement, skin him alive. There would have been like 30 people.
Although all signs pointed to a case of satanic human sacrifice, Sheriff McCourt began to doubt that communion with the devil was the real reason behind the murders.
When I asked Nathan at first if he talked to Satan, he indicated that he did. Later on, Nathan said that indicated that he had lied, that he did not talk to Satan. He said he tried, but he never got a response. Satan never answered him.
It's nothing to do with satanic. It's nothing to do with anything. I was just born this way.
The sheriff's doubt intensified when he interviewed Nathan's brothers, who were out of the house at the time of the attack. And despite what had happened, they seemed to be protecting their brother. Nathan's lawyer claimed the teenager snapped after years of abuse. He tried to have Nathan declared temporarily insane. But Dr. Don Perlmutter, a ritualistic crimes expert, says a plea of insanity from abuse does not give due weight to the corrupting power of Satanism.
There's unfortunately quite a lot of abusive parents in the world, and not all of their children are cutting their heads off and offering it up to Satan as a sacrifice. In the case of Nathan Brooke, a plea of insanity, it's just not applicable.
The court held the same opinion, and Nathan was deemed competent to stand trial.
We, the jury, find the defendant Nathan John Brooks guilty of aggravated murder of Terry M. Brooks.
In October of 1996, the 18-year-old was condemned to 2 life sentences. He only avoided the death penalty because he was 17 when he committed the murders. Yet the question remains, did Brooks use Satanism as a scapegoat for his vengeful rage after years of abuse?
It was later discovered that Mr. Brooks at times had a temper. The neighbors later told us of things they heard, things they saw around, led them to believe that he could be abusive, both to the siblings and Nathan and or the mother.
Some say to label Satanists who commit human sacrifice as being evil or monsters is too simplistic. Their psychologies are much more complex and disturbing. From underground videotapes to bloody ritualistic murder scenes, evidence of satanic human sacrifice has fueled a sense of alarm in America.
These are the Satanists that are underground. These are the ones that don't advertise, that could be, members of a community, and nobody would know that they were practicing Satanists.
Even some satanic church members admit there might be more than meets the eye, and underground satanic groups may cross the line.
I do believe there are groups that participate in human sacrifice.
They'll start with candles, and they may work themselves up to sacrificing animals and larger animals, and eventually a human.
Many have found claims of satanic abuse credible. So credible that in 1992, the FBI investigated the matter and released a comprehensive report on ritual child abuse. The report detailed an in-depth investigation that found no evidence that satanic cults were kidnapping or breeding children and killing them. Retired FBI agent Ted Gunderson believes the report does not go far enough.
I don't pass up any opportunities to talk to anybody who wants to give me information about this evil, horrible movement.
In the conclusion, the FBI report conceded that there is a middle ground, a continuum of possible activity, and that some of what the victims allege may be true and accurate. In the cases of individuals who murder in the name of Satan, do they use satanic sacrifice as an excuse for their murderous behavior? Or does the dark allure of Satanism ultimately lead unstable people to commit these acts?
There are a lot of people that are deranged in this world, and they use whatever they can to justify their actions.
My response to people who do not believe that there are satanic crimes and they just want to interpret this as, mentally ill people, I can tell you that Satanism exists and it needs to be taken seriously.
Are these murders ritual human sacrifice performed as an offering to Satan? Or are they the work of individuals acting out their madness? The mysterious link between murder and satanic human sacrifice remains unanswered.